Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Katharine Ham. I am here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. Things are good here. We got lots of news to talk about, but before we get to the news, shall we talk about what's going on in your life?
Hello.
How's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine. I'm going to call an audible on myself. I do have some other thoughts, but the first thing I want to say is right now, sometimes when we have a glaring light, which we do for the show, obviously, for production purposes.
Right.
It's different in studio. It's a bit brighter and more glaring. I feel like King Abdullah of Jordan. I got a case of the blinkies. Now, does anyone talking about this?
I haven't seen it, but now I'm going to look it up.
Do you know what I'm talking about? And I call it, that's not, I don't think that's the actual medical term, a case of the blinkies. But he couldn't stop blinking. Like hard blinks, not like not the flutter, not the Karine Jean-Pierre flutter blink of I have to prevaricate right now, and what do I say?
Right.
This is the something's in my eye, or I am not sure what's going on.
Perhaps he had an allergy.
Yes, I don't know, and it happens to the best of us. But there are people like this, and I'm surprised I haven't seen a drug commercial for this condition, because there's like a drug commercial for everything, and there's one for if there was one for like I can't stop blinking. Yeah, that's a thing.
They'll have to think of a new drug name, which they're running low on those.
Yes, Blink Voke, Blink Era. Anyway,
that'll fix everyone right up.
Yes, no. So I just wanted to start by saying that I don't think anyone's talked about his blinking situation, but it's going on.
Perhaps that was part of the diplomacy.
Yeah.
Statecraft is very complex.
When
guys.
he was younger, he speaks like a very distinguished gentleman now. Yes, he's very distinguished. He's always been very well spoken in English. The King of Jordan. His wife, they were married for a long time. When she was Princess Rania,
yes,
she was something else.
Oh, I mean, she
still is.
She's pretty something else
go
as
back,
queen
just
as well.
do Google image Queen Rania young.
Although not great on the October 7th rhetoric.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking strictly looks, not beliefs. Okay, I'm doing fine. The only thing I want to say is every now and then, Mary Katharine, I say, you know what? Let me sort of get out of my comfort zone and do something else in the house, like I don't know, yard work.
Okay.
Which is not my domain. Man stuff. So I was walking out of the house the other day, and I had noticed, this is before the snow, we still had the wreaths up on the windowsill and with the lights. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do Kate a favor.
It's time.
And I see where it's plugged in to the side of the house. I'm just going to unplug and just very, disconnect.
Right.
But then there's the extension cord. She had used alien tape to press the wreath against the sill. So now I'm ripping it off. And suddenly the door opens and it's Kate. She goes, "What are you doing?" Was she watching me the entire time? And I said, I just, I wanted to help. And she goes, "I just thought, because there's snow coming up, it might be nice to have some lights. It's not really that Christmas." So there was a reason for the whole thing.
Okay.
And now she just goes, just do it. Just go ahead and do it now and put it in the basement. I'll take, I said, she goes, "I'll handle it from there." So the lesson is don't try to go out of your comfort zone.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. And I said, okay, well, I'm going back inside to brunoise an onion. Thank you. That's all I have.
We all have certain skills.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick to it. Mary Katharine, how are you? How was your snow day?
Oh, pretty good. My capitalist children went out and made 70-something bucks. Just shoveling lawns, shoveling walks.
Is this how big is the team effort here too?
So there were 3 kids. One is not mine, all of about the same age. So one other kid from another family, and then my 2 big girls. Now, one of my 2 big girls is more industrious in these areas than the other.
Okay.
The other really likes money, but she's not as into the work part. So
it happens.
So they went out and did some walkways and driveways. The great thing about it, well, first, okay, the one that really likes money, but who's not as dedicated to the hard work, is more of a project manager. She did have a great idea. She was targeting houses with really nice cars.
Wow. So did they have in their? That's very smart.
As biz dev goes, that's a pretty good idea.
Did they have in mind a set fee of how much they're going to charge, or just charity?
No, so then Yes. So I asked them because I was unaware that any of this was happening. I'm very proud of them. They went out and did it on their own. They did not workshop this idea with me.
Entrepreneurial children.
Although I think I've mentioned in the past that like that's a cool thing you can do in the snow. So and this was not a super heavy snow, and it had just fallen, so they could move it pretty easily. And so they went out and did so, and I asked them what they were charging, and they were doing it on spec.
Wow.
They were doing it for free.
Like, you like our work?
They were doing it for free out there, and then the adults would just come out and hand them money. And they did not set a price.
I would say, can you share what sort of what was the average donation?
I would say, it's hard to say because
70 is a lot though, so they must.
Yeah,
have,
I don't know how many walkways they did.
That could have been 3
because they were out for a couple of hours doing that work. So anyway, in the end, they came home and they had a dispute about the distribution of the funds
because divided by 3.
Because my older was project manager, who did have the good idea to target these houses with the nice cars. She had not done as much work.
Yes.
And so Dad came down to figure that out and was like, here's your part of the money, and here's the much larger part of the money for the girls who did most of the work. So
did your more business-minded daughter then push for equity?
She's like,
she's
like, do I get benefits?
Yes,
with this job,
evenly divided regardless of merit.
She'd be like, oh, my back. Suddenly, I need a worker comp.
That's right, you need workers comp. Well, snow shoveling is very hard.
They did a great job. Like I said, it was not it wasn't a super challenging snow to move. I think I had done a little bit before. They didn't do our.
No, because you're not going to pay the way they pay. This is very smart. This is exactly what
I think they did eventually end up doing our stairs, but they didn't do our walk. I did our driveway and our walk.
My son, I think last year when there was like one big storm or before that, he printed out flyers. So just offering services.
Truly, if there's a 9-year-old girl outside your house shoveling away, I'm gonna go out and take her 10 or 20 bucks.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's and it also.
I mean, not my own daughter.
No.
They're not gonna get anything from me, but somebody else's cute daughter.
You open the door. That's right. You open the door, and it's these cute little girls saying, look what we did." Give them something.
Yeah. You wanna? Where's all the boys in this neighborhood? What are they doing?
No, that's right.
My girls are cleaning up out here.
Good for them. Good for them.
Anyway,
Katharine.
I was proud of them. Other than that, I got everybody off to school with their Valentines today. I know, it's a whole thing.
I don't think it's, now it's, my daughter's at the age where she hangs out with her friends for Galentines.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's wholesome. We're at the stage still where they don't even put the names on the Valentines, which is the most efficient way to do it. Like, you just send them with blank Valentines and they hand them out to all the kids.
Right? It's not personalized.
Because otherwise you get into like, and now you have to think about who gets what. And they don't want it to be, they like the equity, And, but the big girls now they want to personalize theirs a little bit. And I was like, you know what? Go with God. Personalize them. Don't hurt anyone's feelings.
That's right. Don't hurt,
And the older one, I was like, do you have enough for your class? Because I wasn't double checking the work. And she was like, yeah, I think so. I'm sure it'll be fine.
A couple guys might not be on the list. Too bad for them. I love getting, you would have to get specific, like when I was in middle school, you would have like specific value. You can get specific. You're not getting for the whole class. So if you got one, it was special.
Yeah. They let you hurt people's feelings
back
then. They don't do that anymore.
Back then, no, but I was like...
You know what I did, though? I splurged. I bought... Because you can buy the Valentine's kits with the terrible candy in them, right?
You mean the one with the messages?
The hearts, or the, a lollipop that's really cheap. You can do that. But it's actually more cost-efficient to buy just the paper Valentines, which cost nothing.
Yes. And
then a bag of individually wrapped Dove chocolates.
Wow.
So the kids got Dove chocolates.
That's fancy.
So look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Now they're going to be like, your mom must be rich because she bought Dove chocolates.
Fine, we're going to have to up it and get lint.
I bought them with your $71 that you made shoveling walks.
Used her money. That's nice. Are you big on Valentine's yourself?
No.
No,
I'm not. I feel that it is I don't don't want to be a Scrooge about like Hallmark holidays and that kind of thing.
It is a Hallmark
but it
holiday.
feels a little forced.
Yes. Also, I understand it's good for businesses, but I hate going to restaurants on Valentine's Day.
Hate it.
Menu and price and service.
Yeah.
It's all the above. Nobody wants to be there,
If you go on
including the people
Valentine's
there
Day,
working.
what I've done in the past on Valentine's Day, if I remember correctly, because like I was early pregnant and sick, is you gotta get that 5 p.m. slot for dinner, and then you like got the place to yourself.
Yeah.
You got the good service.
5 p.m. That's
It's not so crazy. So you got to go the early bird Valentine's.
There you go.
And
pro tips for our
I
listeners.
know you're hearing this on Valentine's, but if you haven't done anything for your sweetheart, run out and get something real quick because you're going to be in trouble.
That's going to be me when I'm listening to this podcast. Okay.
I'm reminding you now, Vic.
Thank you.
Reminding you now.
It's very Back to the Future of us. Okay.
Shall we do some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Can we talk about yet another hostage, an American hostage held in Russia? I did know this guy's name, Mark Fogel. He's an American school teacher who was picked up for having a tiny amount of medicinal marijuana, similar to the Brittany Griner case, but we did not hear about him nearly as much as Brittany Griner because Brittany Griner was famous and Mark Fogel is not. The Biden administration famously traded a Russian arms dealer whose nickname is the Merchant of Death for Brittany Griner. Griner came home. We apparently didn't want a package deal on the Merchant of Death, so Fogel was left behind. The Trump administration has been working on this behind the scenes, and lo and behold, the other night, Fogel flies back to the U.S. at night from Russia. He's wearing a Steelers hat. He gets off the plane in the snow as it's falling. He kisses the ground when he arrives back in America.
Like the hostages used to do when they arrived after in Iran.
He had an American flag draped over his shoulders. He goes to the White House where Trump walks out in the falling snow at 10:30 or 11 at night because the man never sleeps.
No.
To shake his hand and welcome him. And then dude has a beer in the White House. A specific Pittsburgh beer, I believe, because he's from Pennsylvania.
That's overwhelming.
And Iron City is what he drank at the White House. Just great news. You love to see it.
Yes. Again, as you mentioned, it's not like we heard a lot about this at the time. And we're learning now that when Mark Fogel learned that he was not part of this hostage or, this exchange, a prisoner exchange.
During the Biden years?
During the Biden years, that this was like in the summer of 24, he slipped into a terrible depression.
Oh, I can imagine.
I would have slipped at day one. That would have been me. And he had, so he had his hopes up that this was going to work out. And upon learning this, he just thought, that's it. They're not.
Yeah, they've left me behind.
What else are they going to do for me? And then 10 or so days into the Trump administration, they worked to bring him back.
Griner was released in December 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So now more than 2 years past that, he's been held. He was picked up in 2021. Look, Trump is particularly good at this thing.
Right.
And he was during his first term too. And he does not make the same kinds of dire deals, seemingly. Like we don't always know exactly what's going on there, that Biden did.
Don't.
For instance, in this case, it looks like the U.S. traded a money launderer for Fogel, which is a better deal than the Merchant of Death.
It's still crazy that trying to find the equivalent of a prisoner to exchange. It's usually somebody who has actually done something dangerous or criminal on that we're keeping.
Yes.
And then it's just some person who gets nabbed.
Right. I mean, this is the nature of dealing with irrational dictatorships. Fun times.
That's right. But do you remember?
Don't go to Russia.
And certainly if you're going to Russia, don't bring anything that might be even questionably even if it's for medicinal purposes. You're putting yourself in a very dangerous position.
There was one young lady who was detained in Russia because she was visiting her grandmother and she had made a donation to a Ukrainian charity.
That's right. They'll find that
2 years earlier.
Yeah.
So
any reason they can hold you and use you as a token. Yeah. And do you remember? I mean, again, you think about this guy coming back and then seeing the president and being at the White House at night, and it's just overwhelming. Do you remember Lisa Ling's sister, who was also held in North Korea?
Yeah.
And it was, I believe, Bill Clinton who helped coordinate her release.
Right.
And
Laura Ling was her name.
Laura Ling.
Yep.
And, as soon as she's released, who do they see in the room? Bill Clinton, like, I gotcha. I gotcha, girls. I don't know. I hate to say that, but it's just kind of I remember at the time, that's all. Okay.
Anyway, it's
So
good
it's a
news.
big
It's
thing.
beautiful to see. There's also news that at least one U.S. citizen who had been detained in Belarus, this
Yes.
is CBS News reporting, was released Wednesday. The United States top hostage negotiator said one of 3 prisoners being freed, Adam Boehler, President Trump's nominee to be the envoy for hostage affairs, told reporters at the White House that the individual wants to remain private. 2 other individuals were released Wednesday as part of the deal. He said Radio Free Europe identified its journalist Andrew Kuznich, who was arrested in November 2021 as one of the people released. So it's just nice to see. And the Fogel thing was just heartwarming. He also had a bourbon on the plane, it looked like. So he was
Definitely.
he was really enjoying
I'd
his
say
homecoming.
I hope it's not vodka, So,
No, I feel like I would swear it off at that point.
Yeah.
Thanks, but no thanks, Russia.
No, exactly. But that's and that's like only one piece of the puzzle of what's happening with Trump.
Yes. So we should touch on briefly. We don't know what will happen with the Israeli hostages this upcoming Saturday. That was the deadline that Trump set, except Trump's not really setting the deadline because he's not saying that America is going to do anything on Saturday. He's basically saying if 76 hostages don't come home Saturday, noon Saturday, we don't know which time zone, noon Saturday.
Could be Greenwich Mean Time.
If they don't come home, that basically Netanyahu has a free hand.
That's what it means.
So we don't know what will happen there.
No, it's not like we're like seeing any movement from like the 6th Fleet, for example, being put into position to start launching, tomahawks into Gaza.
I did notice today, let me pull it up. Scott Jennings was tweeting and flagged this in the Wall Street Journal. Remember we talked about taking over Gaza, and we said, that sounds like a wild idea, but perhaps the idea is to obliterate the Overton window and get people to do things that they haven't done in the past.
That's right.
Egypt has launched a diplomatic blitz to corral support for an Arab-led and funded initiative to rebuild the Gaza Strip, setting aside old political concerns in hopes of boxing out a Trump plan that is wildly unpopular across the Arab world. Arab states that had once hoped to use their funding capacity to push for a Palestinian state are now under pressure to prevent a mass displacement of Gazans that could destabilize any of the countries pressed to take them in. So
that is correct. You don't like the plan, come up with something better.
Yeah.
As opposed to, because the status quo is clearly not working. Because everyone can make fun of this idea of Trump's Riviera Gaza Lago or whatever. But the fact is, we can't keep on repeating this cycle of, keeping Hamas still in power and their charter still says that our goal is to destroy Israel, and they'll have a few more years to build up weapons and then do it again.
Right.
No more. They can't.
And
do this
notably, this administration, which is not super friendly to the idea of all foreign aid, we give a lot of aid to the surrounding Arab countries.
We definitely do. Obviously, Israel, Egypt, as a result of the Camp David Accords, billions of dollars. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
There are things on the table.
Yeah. And I think that Trump was clearly just moved to say this because he was disgusted with the treatment of these Israeli hostages who were released.
Which is very
One of whom,
worrying
of
and
course,
indicative that
dead,
either the remaining hostages are in extremely bad shape or many of them have already perished.
Right, exactly. And so he was like, enough is enough. And so, well, good for him.
So, Vic, now's the time in the show when I'm going to ask you to just explain Ukraine and Russia to me. You have 2 minutes.
I want to point out to our listeners, I did not know I was going to be discussing this when I walked into the studio.
Look, I've been reading about this for 2 days, but it is a rather intractable problem. We have a situation where Russia started a ground war in Europe.
Yeah.
It is the aggressor.
They are.
It is obviously doing all sorts of horrible things, war crimes included, to take territory from Ukraine, a Western-aligned nation. You don't want to concede that territory or
no, this was their territory. This was Ukrainian territory.
It's Ukrainian territory. Yeah. And yet Trump is a person who wants to be realistic about okay, but what does it actually look like to regain that territory? There are a lot of people dying in this war.
Yeah.
He tends to be a person who doesn't want us super involved in it. It would certainly be a shift from the Biden administration, at least in rhetoric. But now you've got Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, went to Kiev. Now we say it that way.
Yes.
I'm always like right in the middle somewhere
KYIV
because as a
now,
child we all learned Kiev. Anyway, so we got him, Bessent, over there, and Hegseth is also in Europe talking about NATO. So now that there's things moving here.
Right.
That's my sophisticated.
No, that was good. That was good.
Analysis.
I think, again, Trump, the older you get, that filter gets, less and less. And he's just going to say, I'm going to call it the way I see it. They're not going to win this war. The way. And I think Hegseth said something, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said something similar, which is it's not a NATO country. It's not going to be a NATO country. During the Biden years, the sentiment was right, which was Russia needs to be defeated, not we need to defeat Russia. Right. Not we, the United States. Ukraine will do everything we can. At the same time, they weren't doing everything they can. Weapons are constantly being held back in terms of the type of weapons they want to send to Ukraine because the fear of escalation. Don't go into Russia, just fight a defensive war, which cannot be done. Germany, early on, Olaf Scholz spoke about the chancellor, like this is our moment. We are going to help Ukraine. And again, keeps on holding back weapons shipments, tanks, you name it. It's a very complicated process.
This is one of my issues with the Biden strategy in both its support of Israel and Ukraine is that it always seemed like, well, we're going to give you just enough to perpetuate the conflict, but not to win the conflict.
No,
which seems not a great idea.
Ukraine didn't do anything to, obviously, to deserve this. And they weren't even, if people remember going back in time, it wasn't about them joining, I think, NATO. It was about the European Union.
Right.
But then one thing led to another. And people tend to start forgetting the chronology of events. I've heard people say, well, Russia only did this because of, Sweden and Finland joining NATO. No, that happened after. Right. They had no desire to join NATO before that. They were fine. Everybody got along fine on that border.
They got a little freaked out by your aggression, guys.
They did. And so what Trump is just basically saying now is, can we just have the fighting stop and people stop dying? That is, however, a sort of a short-term solution. I get it. But what you don't want is to concede this territory in the Donbass to Putin.
Well, and even if
that means that the invasion paid off, even though Putin has lost, maybe, I don't know if it's a million, it's at least more than 500,000. Russians have died in this, and they're throwing in conscripts and North Koreans.
And a lot of their arms build up over the year.
Yeah.
There's supplies being lost here and all that kind of thing. They've certainly been injured.
Right.
But then
it's a wartime economy, though.
I think the question some were asking is the tell it like it is saying too much right now because it's taking away leverage from the U.S. as it has these discussions in the future.
Yeah, I mean, this is
because you want to hold open the idea that this NATO
you don't want. Well, again, it's just like when Barack Obama used to say immediately that we're going to rule out military force or something.
Like, let's not do that.
Don't say that out loud. Even if we obviously knew he wasn't going to do this. No, so I was just going to say that in this case, what you don't want is to come up with some short-term solution, and all you're doing is kicking the can down the road and giving Putin more time to regroup and somehow be re-welcomed into the community of nations, which right now, they're basically a pariah. But again, I don't know how on the other hand, I don't know how Ukraine is able to actually. Well, they're fighting them to a draw, which is truly impressive.
Which is
Russia is
pretty amazing.
Giant.
Yes. Oh, and a leader who has no care for how many people he sacrifices
it's
to
cannon
this.
Fodder.
Nor North Koreans who he might sacrifice as well. Scott Bessent, is it Bessent or Bessent? Anyway, Scott Bessent. I'm the one who's supposed to know that. I'm supposed to look that up before I do a podcast. I should look that up before I do a podcast. I should ask Scott. Scott, hi.
I'm going to say Bessent like Jacqueline Bisset.
I like it. It feels very sophisticated.
Yeah.
Scott Bessent.
Yes, I'm with you on that.
Said on Wednesday, I'll just tell you a little bit about what he's doing over there. This is Reuters reporting that a minerals deal between Kyiv and Washington would provide Ukraine with a post-war security shield, and President Volodymyr Zelensky said he hoped to reach an agreement within days. He's the first cabinet-level official on Donald Trump's team to visit Ukraine, and glad to have him there. Like I said, every time I hear that guy talk, I'm like, I like that you're in charge.
He did very well in his confirmation hearings.
He's very calming.
Yes.
He knows a lot of things. He speaks very, like, even when reporters are peppering him with, like, sometimes frantic questions, as one of the Bloomberg reporters was about Elon, like, what does he have access to?
Right.
And Bassett is just like, he's with career Treasury officials.
Who are also unelected, by the way.
If y'all listen to Scott, you'd be okay.
That's
reporters.
Right. That's right.
Anyway.
I'm going to say, apropos of nothing, Kennedy, Donald Trump is now the head of the Kennedy Center. I don't know why I was thinking about that when I was thinking about Scott Bassett. But
did you? I thought he put is Rick Grinnell is doing the on the ground work.
Rick Grinnell, and I don't know. I have some time. I'd like to be on the board. I can get to,
We should call Rick after I call Scott and figure out how to say his name.
Yes.
We will call Rick, who is Grinnell. I know that one. Yeah. We'll call Rick. Apparently, Rick got a sit down with the leadership of the Kennedy Center, and wouldn't you know it turns out that's badly run as well. Just like everything else.
Yeah, they let everybody go, basically.
In the federal government, or the federal government.
I wonder what it's like now if you walk through the halls of the Kennedy Center. What is the mood? Is it somber? Are you going to see like people pushing over the giant head of Kennedy onto the red carpet? Like at the end, like in '89, they're pulling it down. Like Saddam. They're just going to knock down the giant head of Kennedy.
It is a giant head. If you've never been to the Kennedy Center, giant Kennedy.
No, I find myself staring at it and thinking, wow, that's like almost as big as my head. It's amazing.
True. We should put them next to each other as a scale.
It looks like, if you people who know what I'm talking about here, it looks like it was sculpted by the blind sculptress in the Lionel Richie video, Hello. That's all I'm going to say.
It is, yes.
So going back to the video, it's just sort of like...
It is sort of an impressionist sculpture.
Yeah,
it is not an exact sculpture.
Yes,
although I think it looks like him.
Well, no, it does. It does. Certainly from like a distance. Now,
it's better than the whole Hello one.
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
We're totally going off. We're veering off here.
It's okay.
From the script.
I'm here for it.
I think that under a new administration, the Kennedy Center, cheaper concessions for the candies and the snacks.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Also,
and the wine.
And can you bring them into the theater?
Yeah.
I know they don't want to turn it into a movie theater and the floor becomes sticky, but I think... Look,
what you're missing, Vic, is that people are trash. People are trash, and they're going to...
throwing their candies around.
Even at the Kennedy Center, they're going to be dropping that stuff on the floor.
I love bringing them in and just like sneaking it in.
This is one of my old fogiest impulses.
Yes.
Is when on occasion I have been to the Kennedy Center and I see how people dress to go to the Kennedy Center, and I'm like, dudes, put on some dress clothes.
Oh, it's really surprising because...
Put on some dress clothes.
You're going to a stage performance or the opera or the symphony. You would think that, but it's amazing. But there's still the olds who go there.
Yes.
Right? And this is probably why, as you know, they kept masks on. I think to yesterday. I think they were keeping them masks
Dude, they
yesterday.
were forever, yes.
My question to you, Mary Katharine, is this going to affect the lineup of the shows? What would you like to see? What do you think? What's going to happen?
It's going to be nothing but Shane Gillis.
On stage, okay.
All year.
Okay.
Shane Gillis featured. Actually, Shane Gillis will have a residency at the Kennedy Center.
Well,
that's what we're gonna do.
The other thing is, don't forget, Trump loves opera.
That's true.
Classical opera. So you'll probably see a lot of Puccini.
Hey, who's mad at that?
No, I think
Puccini and Shane Gillis. Puccini performed by Shane Gillis.
And maybe what's the funniest thing is? Through it all, people are going to forget that upstairs they're still putting on Sheer Madness.
I think
still going.
It could just be a parade of canceled artists.
Yeah, that's right. No.
Anyone who's been canceled.
No, they can do Othello. They can do Othello. No,
some of them would have been canceled for like really good reasons, like the deserved. Yeah. But they'll just come into the Kennedy Center
the actual,
anyway.
Yeah,
like,
all the canceled people,
like actual bad ones.
Yeah.
But they're not going to vet that.
Roseanne Barr. You can say Roseanne Barr is going to go up there.
Oh, that's another good one with a cigarette.
No, I don't know about that.
Like the old days.
Oh boy.
Spring smoking back at the theater. Okay, I think we have a lot of good ideas here.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Rick Grinnell says in his tweet about this, I was briefed today by the CFO of the Kennedy Center on its financial situation. She told me there's zero cash on hand and zero in reserves, and the deferred maintenance is a crisis. For the past months, they've been digging into the debt reserves. We must fix this great institution. The people working hard at the nation's premier performing arts center deserve better, and so do all Americans. Okay, we'll wait for all this to be verified. I assume that the CFO is telling Rick Grinnell the truth about their finances.
Yeah.
Something occurs to me about all of these NGOs and charities that are saying they can't operate without USAID,
Right.
and that their government funding being cut off last week means that they can't make payroll this week.
Mm-hmm.
If you are running any kind of charity and enterprise, or I guess it's not an enterprise if it's charity, ministry,
Yeah.
performing arts center, and you are so dependent on government money that you cannot go 2 weeks without it,
Right.
you have behaved irresponsibly. You have let down the people who do donate to your organization, if there are any,
Right. No.
in addition to taxpayers who have been funding you.
So two things here. One, this brings to mind National Public Radio. And there, of course, complaints, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if they remove federal funding? Right. I believe federal funding is only like 6 or 10% of their, and they're making over $100 million, right, in corporate sponsorships. NPR.
Oh, NPR.
NPR, right?
Oh,
they have a lot. Okay, so that's the first thing. If you take it out, they're still going to have.
They
all
have
these other
the
sponsors.
most affluent audience that exists.
Yeah, that's the first thing. The second
Get
thing
advertisers. You'll be fine.
You're talking, Mary Katharine, about fiscal responsibility for these kind of nonprofits. You, of course, serve on a board, right? At the
Travis Minion Foundation.
We
don't operate that way.
I think we know who should be on the board.
We got reserves. We have
this one.
We have plans for the future. We make sure we have cushions. We make sure we can pay our people. It's a whole thing we do. That's why you got a board. Yeah.
Well,
I think we're all qualified, is what we're saying.
I'll be very excited when you're on the board and let us know what the shows are going to be.
Okay, cool. Oh, this is going to be fun. Outcast. You'll be coming to the Canadian Center.
I thought it would be like a revival of.
By the way, you want me to feel old real quick? Outcast is on the list of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame possible inductees this year.
Wow.
I believe, yeah. So, getting on up there. That's right. Who else would I have?
Shake it like a Polaroid picture. Thank you. That's all I can remember at this moment.
You got it.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? You're only 20 years away from getting Kendrick Lamar. Like, eventually you'll get there.
By the time I do. Too late. Okay.
All righty. Shall we to the confirmations?
Yes.
Okay. Tulsi Gabbard, confirmed.
Wow.
Done and done. She will be the Director of National Intelligence. A little bit of a surprise.
Yes.
People came out of the woodwork on this one.
Mm-hmm. She just announced her deputy is Edward Snowden is coming back.
Vic.
Sorry. I have a question for you, Mary Katharine, and we can get into this. Are you surprised by how many of these people, meaning all of them, Trump nominees have been confirmed by the Senate, and that the Senate Republicans are so in lockstep? Or
I am a little surprised.
I am.
But I think that,
by the discipline.
Now, but I think there are also different constituencies at work here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, RFK will be today. So by the time this airs, we will have an answer on what happens with him. I think that's, it's a little bit walking a tightrope.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that's called again?
Yeah, walking a tightrope.
Okay.
A fine line. Threading a needle.
My circus vocabulary is out of practice. At any rate, high wire. High wire? Tightrope?
High wire
act.
It's
the same thing,
It's
guys.
a high wire act.
It's a high wire act. Anyway,
yes.
So we'll know more about that. But I think in the case of like a Collins or a Murkowski with RFK, they have crunchy mom constituencies.
They do. Up in Maine.
Who they are hearing from.
It's totally
on
true.
behalf of RFK. Tulsi Gabbard, I think senators who are not super hawkish might kind of like the idea of a DNI who's been the target of the Intelligence Committee community at times, and is interested in them being a little bit more in check when it comes to monitoring the American people. Yeah, there's a strain of that in the Republican Party.
All I could think of was poor Matt Gaetz thinking I should have stuck it out. I shouldn't have pulled out so early, so to speak, and maybe he would have gotten the votes. No. It is going to be interesting. I keep on thinking that for a lot of these senators, the enormous pressure that is being put on them by the president and the administration in order to be in lockstep and vote, and all they want are some concessions and some conditions that these nominees will not, like RFK, will not get involved in anything related to abortion, for example, right? Or that Tulsi Gabbard is not going, moving forward, she is going to be tougher on certain states in the Middle East, shall we say. But who knows? We'll see.
Well, the one that's interesting to me is Lori Chavez de Remer.
Oh, yes,
Again, we have
Raymer.
we have all these names today that I don't know if they're French pronunciation or not.
De Remer? No, I'm going to say de Raymer.
I think you're probably right. At any rate, she is a congresswoman, Republican congresswoman, but very labor friendly.
Yeah.
Was endorsed
She's
by.
not a Republican.
Huh?
She's not a Republican.
Oh, sorry. Is she not?
Oh no,
No,
she was. She's very labor friendly. You're right.
Yes. Hold on.
You got fact check me on that one. Sorry.
She is a Republican congresswoman, but she's very labor friendly, as in endorsed by all the major unions that are targeting Trump as we speak.
Yeah.
Right? Like the government employees union, which we'll get into, who is demonstrating against Doge and all of Trump's actions right now,
right,
endorsed her in 2024. So you're going to take that person
kind of a red flag
and make her the labor secretary. I do think you might have some issues with a person who is aligned with these entities.
Yes.
Being able to do what you want done at labor.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that become an issue maybe at some point?
This is also, however, a favor, isn't it? She is friends with Robert Kennedy Jr.
Well, and I think a lot of people read it as a favor to Sean, Sean O'Brien.
Excuse me, Sean O'Brien.
Yeah.
Correction there on
to
the
Sean
spot.
O'Brien of the Teamsters. But here's the thing. I think Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters did a clever thing, which was to say, I'm open to addressing both conventions, DNC, RNC.
Yeah.
RNC says, come on down, we'll give you a primetime slot.
And he never endorsed.
He didn't endorse, but I think this was mutually beneficial because it did send a signal, shot across the bow to the Democrats that like, hey, you're working class dudes.
Yeah.
Women too, but like that Sean O'Brien is very evocative of a labor working class dude. We're coming for them.
Yeah.
And this guy's going to speak to them from our stage. However, I think Sean O'Brien also, again, mutually beneficial, not one way, recognizes that he has to give a sop at least to his rank and file because they are not Kamala Harris fans.
No.
They're Trump fans. And so I'm not sure if Sean O'Brien needs a big favor.
Right. Who's in the more compromisable position?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Further, he didn't actually endorse Trump. And I don't think Trump's earning labor votes. There is a different coalition. Yeah. There are labor votes involved here that were not before in the sort of post-Reagan era. Reagan did get a lot of union votes. But again, like Reagan, it's not because he's endorsing union leadership policies. No, that's not what they're into. Right. So I'm not sure you need to do a payoff with a person who endorses labor union policies like the PRO Act, which is this terrible California export that would ruin the gig economy, which she has endorsed.
That's right.
I think introduced, in fact, not just endorsed.
So it's problematic, but as you know, Trump is big on loyalty, and he knows that if somebody, sticks their neck out for him, then he's going to then return the favor unless it's no longer tenable. But when he can do it, obviously, as you saw, he pushed with RFK despite a lot of pushback from a lot of conservatives, not the Heritage Foundation, but others, about their concerns about him and his positions on things like vaccines or abortion. And the same thing with de Raymer. It's because, as you mentioned, Sean O'Brien and the unions.
What's interesting is her confirmation hearing was pushed off to next week because of the snow. There's no snow today, and they're rolling forward with all these other ones, but she was pushed to next week. Right. I wonder if that's a signal that there were some problems behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She would be a figure that the more normie establishment Republican of the past, which there are still some in the caucus, would say, maybe this is our moment to stand up. And maybe this is our moment to stand up because Trump doesn't seem all that attached to this nominee.
Right. If he's going to lose one, it's going to be this one.
Gates and her.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, I
take that as a win.
We know who would be voting against. Would probably be like Mitch McConnell.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Who voted against Tulsi.
Can you stack up a handful? I think maybe you could. But again, Mark Wayne Mullen, who hates the PRO Act and hates all of these things that she's for, he came out and said he's voting for her.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
and
the Oklahoma
he almost
senator.
had the throwdown, didn't he, with
Sean
O'Brien?
Yes,
on a committee hearing. And they were like, you want to take it outside? We'll do it right here. And Bernie Sanders had to be the guy in the middle saying, no, this is not happening here.
We should play that clip for everyone again because it's amazing. Mark Wayne Mullen is a former MMA fighter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's an in-shape dude, Oklahoma man. I believe he's a rancher / farmer.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did just tell Sean O'Brien, like,
right now.
Let's whoop it up.
Let's settle this
like he's self-made. Sir, I wish he was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company. Myself and my wife was running the office because I sure remember working pretty hard and long hours. Pretends like he's self-made. What a clown. Fraud. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution, every
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down.
Okay.
You're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Hold it. If
Hold
we
on.
can't, no,
This is
I have
what
the
he
mic.
said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing.
Not in the hearing room, guys. You got to take it outside. So yeah, that's an interesting turn of events.
It is. Trump has a way of making things very interesting for everybody.
Truly. Okay, Kash Patel he did his confirmation hearing and then kind of disappeared.
Yes.
Which is interesting to me because when we're on like a vibes roller coaster when it comes to these nominees, it's a little bit like you're trying to look into the crystal ball, but you don't really know. With Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, they were seen as like, ooh, this probably isn't going to happen. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is a fait accompli. Kash Patel, while everyone was saying that those two weren't going to happen, was saying, oh, he seems like the most likely of this trio.
Yeah.
And now I haven't heard anything about him.
Although by the time our listeners are listening to this could have happened. They could have taken the vote, so we don't know.
We'll know things tomorrow. You'll know things.
Right. There were some concerns
while you're listening to this.
There were some concerns about a number of senators who needed to be away because they want to attend the Munich Security Conference, which I've always called by its original name, Wehrkunde, which really means like weapons customers. Okay.
Weapons customers.
Kunde.
Love it.
Yes.
We've been talking throughout the last several weeks about Democrats and how they're responding. I do think they've gotten their feet under them a little bit with the lawfare part. They were surprisingly on their heels when it comes to lawfare, because of all the things that libs do well, deploying lawyers is among the
it's right up
height
there.
of their skills.
Yeah.
And yet for 2 weeks he kind of got an open field making these executive orders. So I was surprised by that.
Yeah, he did, but of course these sort of legal maneuvers only buys them some time, because eventually these particular whatever orders that they have will work their way up the court system until finally some judge will have enough time to say, well, what are we talking about here? Let's gather all the evidence. And no, you're completely out of bounds. The Treasury Secretary does have access to the Treasury payment system.
Well, and they may be fast-tracked through the system. So they were right to get started right out the gate on implementing these things. Yes, I believe we talked about it on the show, but one of these orders from the Southern District of New York, said, no, the Treasury Secretary confirmed by the Senate is not allowed to have access to the payment systems inside the Treasury Department. And one judge already has amended that and said, okay, actually, that guy can have access.
Right.
No, not other people who haven't been Senate confirmed, which is not how it works in any other administration. They are holding this administration to a different standard than the Biden administration or any other administration. But it's interesting because they do keep yelling that this is a constitutional crisis, and yet Trump and Caroline Leavitt both have repeatedly said, we will appeal these decisions and go through the proper legal channels. Is that a constitutional crisis, Vic?
Well, it's not quite like Joe Biden saying the Supreme Court has ruled against my student debt forgiveness. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to go around them and keep getting shut down. No, it is not. And I'll tell you who else said it's not a constitutional crisis. John Fetterman.
Oh.
And he said that
Thank you. Once again, Senator Fetterman. Is his pronounced Frenchly as well? Fetterman.
Fetterman. quick,
to everyone in French from now on. Fêterement.
A quick aside.
Jean
When I was
Fêterement.
spending time back in the day with the late great Michel Richard, and we were having a talk, and I have recording these interviews with him. We're hanging out at Citronelle, and he's lamenting
Like
that.
you do.
Yeah, like I do, as you know. It's kind of a little drop bit, a little flex. And he was lamenting that, on the Food Network, any of these food shows, the one person you don't see is a French chef anymore. Because there are no more French chefs on TV. And I said, oh, that's not true. I said, Alton Brown. It's a joke. And then he blew up at me on the recording. He goes, is that French? Alton Brown. And then he goes, Alton? And I was like, well, it almost works. So anyway.
Alton Brown,
Fêterement.
a Georgia Bulldog.
He's a smart guy, by the way. A really smart guy.
He is a very smart guy.
Cooking and science.
Indeed.
Please.
Okay, we've gotten off track a little bit.
Sorry.
Nonetheless,
Fetterman.
Jean
Not a constitutional crisis.
Fêterement
Yes, we.
declares that this is not
It's become a French show.
this is not a constitutional crisis. We appreciate it. Love to hear from him.
Yeah, he says it's like the boy who cried wolf for the Democrats.
Yeah, and they're 10 years into crying wolf. The American Federation of Government Employees had a gathering this week.
After committee.
And yes, they're the folks who get paid with all your money.
Yeah.
And they had a little gathering and they sang at the gathering.
Oh, yes.
To protest Doge's work. Shall we play a little bit of that? This is Kimmel introducing a clip of this raucous band of protesters.
We want no part of that. There are so many nutty ideas coming from so many corners now. And the Democrats, I guess they're doing their best. On Capitol Hill, they had a protest. Hakeem Jeffries, some other congressional Democrats led a group of civil servants in a rally to fight back against evil Elon's plan to gut the government and put them out of work.
We'll fight against Doge. We'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon's kept within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The losing one? It seems like, oh my.
It's old people singing out of tune is really just the extra element. It was like the ghost of Pete Seeger was there.
I rarely say that Kimmel's right, but he's correct here.
Yeah.
I'm on the other side, and most people who watch that video will say, I am on the other side. I don't want to be on that one.
Right.
Don't want to be on that side.
Well, you start to ask yourself, well, do I want these people back in government?
Yes, these are the people.
Know.
These are the people standing in the street
Yeah.
on a Tuesday for several hours, singing, telling you that they are indispensable to the work of the United States government.
And we're still here.
I don't believe they're indispensable. All right, do you want to do quickly Gulf of America?
Thank you, Mary Katharine. Yes. So if you go to Google Maps now, I don't know how he made this happen. It's amazing. By his executive order diktat, or whatever you want to call it.
His authoritarian decree.
Authoritarian decree. Masculine maximalism, I believe how the Times calls it or something.
Do they call it that? He's going to love that.
Yes, I know. The Gulf of Mexico on Google Maps is now the Gulf of America. So it is now official. It is now called the Gulf of America. And I feel like because of the countless executive orders that are coming at us, that they just don't have the time or the energy and the wherewithal to be upset and want to make this the hill to die on. Like, they're not going to fight this one. It's just happening. But also, if you wanted to fight it, it kind of is, it puts you, if you're a true progressive, right?
Yeah.
Protesting the name change puts you in a weird position because, first of all, it's the Gulf of America. America is not a country, right? It's a continent. In fact, it's two continents. You go down to South America, they consider themselves to be Americans as well. You go to Central America, we are Americans, they say, right? It's not the Gulf of the United States. It's the Gulf of America. Maybe in Trump's mind, America's right. But for everybody else, you can technically argue it means...
It's a continental...
It's a continental thing.
Okay.
Also, if you demand that it's going to be the Gulf of Mexico, who came up with that name, right? It was the conquistadors.
Right.
Right? And before that, it was like maybe the Gulf of New Spain. It's always somebody else's
Well, and also they've...
name, unless you want to go back to Gulf of Anahuac.
Right. Well, I think liberals have also gotten themselves in this a little bit of a pickle here.
Yeah.
Because the rule seems to be we're allowed to change names at the drop of a hat that you've known for your whole life, but you're not.
Right.
And Trump will not abide by those rules.
No.
And so they'll say, this is dumb. Why are you doing it? Well, if it's dumb and it doesn't make any difference, then why are you so mad about it?
Right.
And that's a fair question. I think it's sort of silly.
Yeah. No, we said this before. We talked about cartographic aggression.
Yeah.
This happens.
I don't want to be spending my hard-earned dollars on cartography.
It's going to have to change all these things. By the way, there's also cartographic errors sometimes, and I heard about this, and maybe our listeners in Puerto Rico can tell me if this is true. I heard that it was a mistake. Puerto Rico was supposed to be San Juan, and San Juan was supposed to be Puerto Rico, because San Juan is St. John, and Puerto Rico means rich port.
Oh.
I don't know about our listeners from
we'll fact check that another time. Moderately right and moderately reliable is important. I did want to note,
please.
It looks like on Tuesday of this week that the White House kicked an AP person out of some event. I don't think out of the press room, but out of maybe the pool event in the Oval Office allegedly because AP is referring to it as the Gulf of Mexico, not the Gulf of America. I'm not sure whether the motivation is true or if they just got jostled out of the pool or what have you. But if it is in fact true that they're kicking them out based on the Gulf of America, they should not do that.
No,
because Caroline Leavitt said, when you are wrong, we will push back on you being wrong. But the implication was like with more speech, not less.
Yes.
And this seems like viewpoint discrimination. Yes, it is a privilege to be in the press corps and to go into the Oval Office and those kind of things, and they can make decisions about that. But you shouldn't do the open viewpoint discrimination on these things.
No, that's right. And again, the way I feel about this, about original names, we talk about this maybe one day, who knows, it'll go back to being the Gulf of Mexico. We don't know. I still feel like Belize should be called British Honduras. I hope nobody gets offended by that one.
Yeah, it's Julie Pace, who's the head of AP, says the actions were plainly intended to punish the AP for the content of its speech, which would be out of bounds on First Amendment grounds. Although I would say, even if you're kicked out a couple of times, you're still getting way more access than you did during the Biden years when you sat happily and contently in the press room with no access whatsoever.
Do you remember, Mary Catherine, they get the White House schedule for the day or the week, and it's like one thing. Biden has one thing planned, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all he was doing.
And then you don't even get to be in there.
But you know what? It gave them more time.
Time with their families.
Yeah. Okay. I have a very important call out for you, and for us, and here if you're watching this on video. Do you remember, Mary Catherine, maybe it was a year and a half ago, we gave a shout out to a listener to the show. His name is Itan, and he is in the IDF.
Yes.
Well, a mutual friend of ours, I don't know if I'm allowed to share names because of the situation, has brought to us a gift from Itan to us.
What?
And you didn't even see me sneak this in.
I did not.
Look at this. This is a beautiful bottle, Recanati Israeli Cabernet Sauvignon.
How cool.
And so I want to thank Itan and wish him well and wish his family well. And we do, and safety, of course. Yeah.
Itan is literally at war, and he's sending us a cab.
This beautiful
us a lovely
bottle.
Cab.
And you know what? From time to time, Mary Catherine and Steve and Kate and I, we get together for a dinner. And I think the next time we get together, we're going to open this up.
Yes.
This bottle, when we have our scallops wrapped in bacon and a pork shoulder. No, I'm kidding. No, it'll be a steak. It'll be kosher. We'll have brisket. I promise. Okay. That wraps up.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Close this out, and I'll mention Austin. Go.
There you. Oh, yes. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And you can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MKHammer on X. You can follow me at MKHammerTime on Instagram. Follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube or Instagram to see our smiling faces. And we're taking the show on the road. We're going to do a live show in Austin, Texas. That's right. It's a little bit of an experiment. Small group. The Fund for American Studies is going to have us, and we're going to just shoot that right there on the stage, and it's going to be a good time.
That's it. And then the week after that, I think it's Chattanooga, Cleveland, and Phoenix.
I have not yet put those on my calendar. So.
I have the T-shirt. It has the whole schedule. Sorry.
Fix freelancing over here. We'll see how it goes. We'll report back to you. Thanks for Getting Hammered Responsibly. This has been an Nebulous Media Podcast.